Nothing is a direct crit to the heart like a long RPG ending with sentimentality. And I mean it. The feelings at this quest, The Rising 2022, the feelings were so strong. What it stirred in me. I genuinely felt the reverence that this team, the team developers have for each and every single one of us as players, and for their own game for that matter, considering just how perfectly referential it was. I finished it, I thought, you know what, I'm going to sit here for about 10 minutes or so and just explore how fantastic it was. And also how frustrated I am that I didn't play it before the last video, because that was all about how important new players are. And this really, really reinforces it, and that 14 is bringing in substantially more new blood than ever before. The core conceit of this whole event was stellar. I basically spent 30 minutes feeling like I'm the wizened adventurer that I actually technically kind of am, taking women's spot as the veteran who gets the call out to Nagi, the carriage rider being the same one that you encounter, or, one of the three brothers. That little visit to Mumidi where she says exactly what she does to a player who starts an Ul'dah for the first time. Even the cutscene, right? Just him showing up, the shot being just a mirror of what happens to us. It's a severe blast of nostalgia, but it's not just cute, right? It could just be, it's nostalgic, but it's more than that. The way it's framed for this anniversary turns it from something that's like just fun to something that's more. As Endwalker itself led us to do in Elpis when we're speaking to Vana, this is a time to reflect. We think about our starting point, and because we're thinking about our starting point, we think about how far we've come. Even just trying physically to remember how much we, or as Warriors of Light, have seen, done, and ultimately been through is pretty hard. So being prompted to return to the beginning, it ended up being this really emotional experience. I found myself having to stop when I was done, with The Rising, after about half an hour, and just process it, right? And I've been thinking about it honestly ever since. And that's all just from meeting a new character and talking to them. Crazy. But here's where it got great, right? For the past while, dialogue options. They've been one of the favorite parts of the game for me. They were good in Shadowbringers, especially some of them towards the end. But on Endwalker, they really amped up our ability to characterize our own Warrior of Light. They took it to the next level there. And it's clear that by now, they've mastered that, even within the limitations of a few choices. Because they know, how to lead up to it and then what to ask. Being able to mimic women's opening is that little cute thing of, hey, that's what we heard. And then talking to Nagi about if we ourselves would rather stay traveling or finally set our roots down, that was a nice reflective choice. And same with the choice later on to pick, which item we wanted to bring. That was adorable, even if there was an obvious right answer. But it was this choice, the one on screen now, that really stumped me. It actually took me about 23 seconds to decide. I counted it, in footage. And that felt like an eternity to me sitting there. And here's why. It prompted me to think about what my Warrior of Light would feel. And I sat there for a while, wondering what she would want for a new adventurer. As someone who's fought gods and men alike to the death, she's watched her friends find pain, be injured, and even die. She's witnessed the untold cultural, societal agony of 4 major wars, never mind the personal. She's felt the suffering of a different world completely devastated by loss. She's fought to ensure a doomed civilization would stay doomed. It would have its wings clipped so they could suffer and grow. She's seen the quite literal end of the universe. And beyond all of that, she's empathized with and fought for and against everyone the entire way. Even the most evil of enemies that she had to take down were ultimately just people trying to find something that they were missing, or in some cases, restore something they'd lost. And that's a heavy burden to bear. And is it one she would want for the next generation of adventurers? On one hand, right, as she's learned throughout the years, the world is a really dangerous place. There will always be conflict. That's kind of the hard lesson to learn. There will always be an enemy to fight. There will always be someone or something that will cause suffering, maybe for, it's not necessarily always evil, but, they will cause suffering. And the art of fighting that facing that danger is a little bit thrilling at times. Living on the edge so you can defend the things that you love it's sometimes a solemn duty, but there are a few greater callings than that. It's just something that's great to do, and especially if you enjoy fighting, if you enjoy that thrill, you're an adrenaline junkie, it's worth it, right? It's worth it. Perhaps then the Warrior of Light fights and ultimately wants others to fight, because there will always be a fight And the only way to protect what you've built and historically fought for is to train those who come after to fight. And that's maybe more technically correct. So teach him to fight, he'll be able to fight. I asked for broader shoulders, not lighter burdens. But at this point in the story, with everything that's going on, I thought my Warrior of Light would feel a little bit differently. The goal of fighting is so that the ones who come after don't have to fight, right? Historically speaking, wars aren't fought for the individual, they're fought for your loved ones, for your progeny. There's an old proverb that's allegedly Greek in nature, which would fit 14's recent obsessions. A society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit. The reason that Heidelin sundered the world was to ensure that life could go on. It was the hard choice, and it was a choice that clearly pained her. But it ensured the people that she loved would live on in this new form. And the lyrics of Answers, which was gently playing in the background just before this choice, that's not a coincidence, only reinforces that feeling. Hell, even Medion could be argued to be doing the right thing for the future. So, for someone who's experienced so much, bared such a heavy burden, what would they want for someone else? Do they want to pass that boulder, that rock on? Or do they want what I think everyone with a hard life tends to want for others? The freedom to live differently. And maybe it's selfish from our perspective, or my perspective, not wanting this kid to suffer quite as much. But I ultimately felt that was the right choice in this moment. That's how I think. It's maybe not how I would answer, but I think it's how she would feel at that time. After experiencing all that, maybe this lad shouldn't have to fight. This kid should be free to explore the world and make things and do whatever he wants. And that's the process that kind of went through my head because, well, that was the point of that dialogue test, right? That wasn't just, they'll answer whatever. It was, Answers was playing. The minstrel directed us to guide this kid. And he clearly wasn't interested in the thrills of battle, right? That kid, now he just wanted to travel. He just wanted to see the world. So I thought, hearing that, the Warrior of Light would go, that's why I fight. That's what we've been fighting for. A world that people can live in like that. A world where Nagi can go and do some alchemy, travel the world, go hang out with his sister. He can do whatever he wants. And that's, I think, what the minstrel meant when he said the present owes its existence to the past. Maybe Nagi will have to, prepare themselves for the sick or the dying, or maybe he'll encounter trouble on the road every now and again, and he'll need someone to fight to help him out. But I kind of felt like for the Warrior of Light, this is one victory. This one kid gets to explore. That's all of this fighting, all of this years of genuine strife, all of this literally saving the world is for people like that to be able to live properly. That's how I felt about it, and that was all triggered by just one dialogue choice. I sat there, I thought about it, I answered, I'm thinking about it here, I thought about it to write this, I'm still thinking about it. It's something special that a game can kind of deliver that sentimentality, right? It can make you think about, by bringing you to the starting point, it can make you think about everything from the starting point to where you are. It's that kind of returning to the shower moment, right? It's that, holy shit, we've been a long way. But then it also has you think about, what was it all for? Yeah, I guess it was for that. It was so Nagia Jakia can just be an alchemist and not have to worry very much. That's why I love this quest so much. There were some other things to love about it too, like the callbacks to 1.0. I'm sure most people saw the posts on Reddit and stuff explaining this, but Nagi's sister is actually Kipa, this lady who's in 1.0 who wrote newspaper articles for the Lodestone years ago, in the same way that League of Legends used to have canon newspaper articles on the site, and she even appeared in a few events. I mean, in 1.0, she was actually an NPC that was controlled by a GM. She'd run around interviewing players about the calamity as Dalamud was beginning to fall to try and get interview questions and then publish them in the newspaper. And I thought that was really cute. Some issues, and there's not really too much, there's proof it happened, right? But sadly there's no videos, which is unfortunate. But I thought that's the stuff that they clearly have reverence for their own game. They can refer to 1.0, something that you would expect them to be a little bit ashamed of, but the present doesn't exist without the past. And basically, everything about this event was perfectly themed for an anniversary, especially, Endwalker, now the journey's over, or that leg of the journey's over. We reflect on our beginnings adventures, we realize how far we've come, all the good and the bad times we've had on the way. It's basically perfect. All while I expected a quick little, thanks for playing. I didn't expect to come out of an anniversary event in a video game thinking about the nature of legacy, thinking about what it means to fight for the future. But when we're talking about the future, there's actually a lot of hints in here for what the literal future actually contains. So before we go, we do need to get into that. We might be reading into Yoshida's dialogue a little bit hard here, but he very much, in every way, hammers home this one notion of unexpected change. Everything he says is some version of it. The world is an ever-changing place. Unexpected hardships. Sparks of conflict. Moving towards the unknown. And it takes considerable courage to alter course. He then also says it's a step to create new adventures. And he ends with this line, which is very strong. Indeed, another great change is about to visit the world, and it shall open the way to exciting new journeys. Plot-wise, that's a hint, right? It has to be the MSQ, which means if something crazy, if a great change is going to happen for 7.0, along with a graphical update, it'll be set up, as far as we know, in 6.5 and then delivered on. And right now, there are two avenues of speculation. Either it's related to what we're currently doing, the Void, the 13th, or it's not, and it'll be out of left field. And that means it's going to be something to do with Golbez's plan, right? Which is probably restoring the 13th, but doing that by absorbing all of the sources ether to do that, kind of, I guess, pulling the balance back. Or, and this is what people are thinking, another rejoining. And another rejoining from the 13th would cause a dark aspected calamity, ushering in a new astral or umbral era. Yoshi P said something in an interview that something would happen at the end of 6.x that would completely change the story, is how the translation puts it, leading into 7.0. And as some people have mentioned, Final Fantasy V, and if you're keeping track, 5 comes after 4, it has worlds rejoining after the loss of a system that held them apart, which is, for us, that would be a little bit on the nose, but being on the nose with old FF references hasn't stopped them yet. The Crystal Tower, FF4, we're going to the moon, it's all the same. And you know what? All the better for it, I think. All the better for it. The other possibility then is for it to be completely out of the blue, which seems unlike them, but a lot of Endwalker's final half was kind of out of the blue. It wasn't super new, but it was like, it was basically, none of this was like, obviously or intentionally set up. It was kind of tying old threads together really in a nice way by introducing new things. So that's what they could do here, especially when they only have 6.5 to set up 7.0, theoretically. Because I believe Yoshi said 6.4 will be kind of when this ends, when this 13th arc as it is ends instead of the usual kind of 0.3. So we'll have to see how that goes. So it could feel pretty different. But I trust them enough, right? And now the one thing is I don't expect it to be too calamitous, because if it's like full kind of world revamp, because people are saying, you know, oh, Cataclysm like World of Warcraft. I don't expect that, because that completely goes against how they make content, which is make it good now, it'll be good forever. I can't see them throwing that out. Unless, of course, him talking about courage in this Rising event was about them taking such a bold new step. Either way, I think I trust them, and the graphical update's a perfect time to update any old and tired assets, so maybe it'll look different, maybe it'll feel different, but I don't imagine any content per se to go away. Before I go and ponder some more of what it is to fight, one last thing. If we were to take any of Yoshi P, the Wandering Minstrel's words to heart, we should take these to heart. Of late, more people are seeking to take up adventuring. FF14 still growing. Look at the bouncer numbers. Look at how many people Endwalker brought in. This game is not stopping to grow anytime soon. It's completely crazy right now. There's so much expansion coming. 7.0 is going to be another case of their decade of hard work's paying off, right? And that's what you love to see. Even aside from any kind of, oh, which game is better? Oh, this one's winning, this one's losing. Just the concept that people are playing this game and it's working so well for them and they love it to pieces. That's excellent. It's excellent to see, because I mean, this is a little bit selfish, right? But I want more people to experience this. I think it does an exceptional job of teaching people in a way, kind of, not teaching in a preachy sense, but they do, like, it has a message, right? It has a soul, it has a heart. You play Final Fantasy XIV and unless you go down a very specific route of RP, you're a better person for it, right? You experience all these societal things through a lens of it, like it is storytelling, right? It's not, you're not feeding any of that suffering yourself, but there's an emotional catharsis in it. And they're also lessons that are inspired by the classics, inspired by old myth, inspired by old tales, inspired by what they know of philosophy and psychology and mythology. And it's, I want, the whole meme of, first, was it Morbius, first thing to make 100 billion or 100 trillion at the box office? That's what I want for FF14. I literally want it to be everyone who's ever feasibly, reasonably going to play it is going to play it, and I love the shit out of it. Because after that Rising event, I feel nostalgic as hell for the whole thing. Because the entire journey was wonderful. And they very much went out of their way to remind us of that. And hell yeah, thank them for it. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I hope it keeps growing. And with that, I'm going to go and play some more of it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you very soon.